Throughout history, armies have clashed in battles celebrated for courage, strategy, and sacrifice, but a handful of engagements transcend normal warfare entirely, battles so one-sided that the outcome seems impossible. 300 Spartans against 100,000 Persians, 168 Spanish conquistadors versus 80,000 Inca soldiers, 150 British troops facing 4,000 Zulu warriors. What separates these battles from every other military engagement in history? Battle of Gaugamela, 331 BCE, Alexander the Great's masterpiece. The day a 25-year-old conquered the largest empire on earth. But Alexander didn't create his advantage, he inherited it. At 25 years old, Alexander faced Darius III's rebuilt Persian army near modern Erbil in Iraq. Darius had spent 2 years preparing, even levelling the battlefield to favour his chariots and cavalry. He offered peace, 10,000 talents, ransom, plus all territory west of the Euphrates. Alexander refused. 47,000 Macedonians faced 100,000 to 250,000 Persians, equipped with 200 scythed chariots and 15 war elephants, weapons specifically designed to terrify infantry. Persian casualties reached 40,000 to 300,000. Depending on sources. Macedonian losses, approximately 500 to 1,000. Kill ratio, 40 to 1 to 80 to 1. The 200 scythed chariots and 15 war elephants, Persia's wonder weapons representing enormous investment, caused 0 recorded Macedonian casualties. When Darius fled, the Achaemenid Empire effectively ceased to exist. Alexander became king of Asia, and Greek culture spread from Egypt to Central Asia. But here's what you need to understand about Alexander's genius. The sarissa pike, 18 to 21 feet long, requiring 2 hands, outreached every Persian weapon. 5 rows of pike points projected beyond the front line, creating an impenetrable hedgehog. The hammer and anvil tactic. Phalanx pins the enemy, while companion cavalry delivers the decisive blow. The professional standing army, with regular pay and year-round training. Alexander didn't invent any of this. His father Philip II did. Philip spent 20 years transforming tribal Macedonian levies into Greece's first professional standing army. Mastering the 18-foot sarissa required extensive drilling. Soldiers couldn't fight individually because the pike was nearly useless in single combat. Survival depended entirely on formation cohesion. Philip spent years as a hostage in Thebes learning Greek tactics, then fundamentally redesigned how Macedonians fought. Alexander inherited a military revolution 20 years in the making. Battle of Cannae, 216 BCE, history's deadliest day of combat. Hannibal Barca faced the largest army Rome had ever assembled, 86,000 men, including 8 legions plus allies. Rome had raised this force to crush the Carthaginian invader who had crossed the Alps and won 3 consecutive battles on Italian soil. Hannibal employed the legendary double envelopment. He arranged his army in a crescent with weaker Gallic and Spanish infantry in the centre and elite Libyan infantry on the flanks. As Romans pushed forward, the centre deliberately gave ground, drawing them deeper. Then the flanks pivoted inward, while cavalry struck the rear. Rome lost approximately 50,000 to 70,000 killed and 10,000 captured against 6,000 to 8,000 Carthaginian dead. Kill ratio, 10 to 1 to 12 to 1. Yet Rome refused to surrender. The war continued 14 more years. Battle of Thermopylae, 480 BCE, the most legendary last stand in human history. King Xerxes I led the largest invasion force the ancient world had ever seen, seeking revenge for his father's defeat at Marathon. King Leonidas I positioned his forces at the narrow coastal pass of Thermopylae, the Hot Gates, where the mountains met the sea. The choke point was only 100 metres wide at its narrowest. Persian numbers became a liability. The hoplite phalanx, a densely packed shield wall with overlapping protection and 7 to 9 foot spears, transformed the pass into a killing zone. Over 3 days, Persian casualties reached approximately 20,000 dead against roughly 2,000 Greeks, a 10 to 1 kill ratio favouring the defenders. On the first day alone, only 2 to 3 Spartans fell, while the elite 10,000 Persian immortals were cut to ribbons. Xerxes reportedly stood up 3 times from his throne in disbelief. Though Persia eventually won through a mountain path betrayal, the strategic delay allowed the Greek fleet to withdraw to Salamis, where Persian naval power was broken. Within a year, the invasion collapsed entirely. Thermopylae created the archetypal last stand narrative, studied by military academies for 2,500 years. The 300 Spartans' effectiveness represented 23 years of brutal social engineering. The agoge system, Boys were removed from their mothers at age 7 and placed in military barracks. Training lasted 23 years, from age 7 to 30, before a Spartan was permitted to live with his wife. And here's what almost no one knows. Herodotus documented a Spartan soldier in 480 BCE taken off the front lines due to his trembling, the first recorded case of combat PTSD in human history. The 2 Thermopylae survivors who lived through that legendary stand. Aristodemos deliberately threw himself onto enemy spears at the next battle. Pantites hanged himself. In Sparta, surviving with shame was considered worse than death. Battle of Carrhae, 53 BCE, when 10,000 Parthian cavalry destroyed 40,000 Roman legionaries. Marcus Licinius Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome and member of the first triumvirate, launched an unprovoked invasion of Parthian territory, seeking military glory. He commanded 40,000 to 44,000 legionaries, including 7 legions plus 4,000 cavalry. Parthian commander Serena opposed him with only 10,000 cavalry, mostly horse archers, near modern Harran, Turkey. A 4-to-1 numerical disadvantage. Approximately 20,000 Romans were killed and 10,000 captured against negligible Parthian losses. Kill ratio, effectively infinity. Sources cite Parthian casualties as negligible. Crassus himself was killed during parley. His severed head was used as a prop in a Greek play performed for the Parthian court. The captured legionary eagles, sacred standards, became symbols of Roman humiliation for decades. Rome never conquered Parthia. Carrhae wasn't won by numbers or equipment. It was won by revolutionary, asymmetric innovation. The Parthian shot, horse archers firing accurately while retreating at full gallop. Ammunition innovation, camel trains constantly resupplied arrows, enabling sustained bombardment indefinitely. Combined arms, horse archers fixed the enemy, while cataphracts, armoured heavy cavalry, delivered shock charges against weakened formations. The innovation that destroyed Rome's legions would influence cavalry warfare for the next 1,500 years. Serena, the brilliant commander who achieved this historic victory, was executed by King Orodes II shortly after the battle, killed out of jealousy. Battle of Agincourt, 1415, when common English yeomen slaughtered the flower of French chivalry. Henry V's exhausted, dysentery-ridden army of approximately 6,000 to 9,000 men, 80% longbowmen, faced a French force of 12,000 to 36,000, blocking their retreat to Calais. Heavy rain had turned the recently ploughed field into deep mud. French nobles in the finest plate armour in Europe had to advance 250 yards through that mud, while 7,000 English archers unleashed approximately 70,000 to 84,000 arrows per minute into their ranks. Behind defensive stakes, the English waited. French casualties reached approximately 6,000 killed, including 3 dukes, 8 counts, 90 barons, the Constable of France, and the Admiral, against roughly 300 to 450 English dead. Kill ratio, 15-1 to 20-1. The flower of French chivalry lay dead in the Picardy mud, while English archers, common yeomen, stood victorious. The Treaty of Troyes in 1420 recognised Henry V as regent and heir to the French throne, creating the double monarchy. Battle of Rorke's Drift, 1879, when industrial firepower met the finest light infantry in Africa. On the same day as the catastrophic British defeat at Isandlwana, approximately 4,000 Zulu warriors of the Undi Corps attacked a hospital and supply depot at Rorke's Drift. The garrison, 139 to 150 men of B Company, 2nd 24th Regiment of Foot, commanded by Lieutenant John Chard and Lieutenant Gonville Bromhead. The Zulu warriors, among the finest light infantry in the world, had been denied participation in the morning victory and were seeking glory. After 10 to 12 hours of continuous combat, the Zulus withdrew at dawn. British losses, 17 killed, 15 wounded. Zulu losses, 351 officially counted dead, with estimates ranging from 500 to 875 based on participant diaries. Kill ratio, approximately 20-1. 11 Victoria Crosses were awarded, the most ever for a single action by one regiment. But Rorke's Drift wasn't won by courage alone. It was won by industrial systems the Zulus couldn't match. The Martini Henry rifle, adopted in 1871, uses 577 over 450 caliber, 10 to 12 rounds per minute, and has a 400-yard effective range. And here's the telling detail. Nearly all British casualties came from Zulu rifle fire, using weapons captured at Isandlwana that morning, not from stabbing weapons. Battle of Cajamarca, 1532. The most lopsided engagement in military history and the fastest collapse of an empire. Francisco Pizarro led 168 men deep into the Inca Empire, Emperor Atahualpa had just won a bloody civil war and commanded approximately 80,000 battle-tested troops. Viewing the tiny Spanish force as insignificant, Atahualpa entered the central plaza of Cajamarca with 7,000 unarmed attendants, leaving his army encamped half a mile away. The Incas had never seen horses, guns, or steel. In approximately 30 minutes to 2 hours, the Spanish killed 2,000 to 7,000 Incas and captured Emperor Atahualpa. Spanish combat deaths, 0. The only Spanish injury was to Pizarro himself, a sword wound to his hand inflicted by a Spanish soldier when Pizarro blocked him from killing Atahualpa. Pizarro wanted the emperor alive as a hostage. Atahualpa offered to fill a 22-feet-high room with gold and 2 rooms with silver, the largest ransom in human history, valued at $200 to $500 million today. The Spanish collected it, then executed him anyway. The Inca Empire collapsed. Battle of Omdurman, 1898, when industrial killing reached its terrifying peak on the banks of the Nile. Major General Sir Herbert Kitchener led 25,800 Anglo-Egyptian troops to reconquer Sudan and avenge General Charles Gordon's 1885 death at Khartoum. The Mahdist state, under Khalifa Abdullah, had controlled Sudan for 13 years. On September 2nd, approximately 50,000 dervish warriors launched mass frontal assaults across the Carrhae plain against British positions north of Omdurman. They attacked with spears, swords, and outdated rifles. Britain responded with 52 quick-firing artillery pieces, 20 Maxim machine guns, Lee Metford magazine rifles, and 12 Nile gunboats. In approximately 5 hours, Anglo-Egyptian forces killed 10,000 to 12,000 Mahdists, wounded 13,000, and captured 5,000. Anglo-Egyptian losses: 48 killed, 434 wounded. Kill ratio, approximately 200 to 1. British artillery opened fire at 2,750 metres. Most Mahdists never got within 300 yards of British lines. The main assault ended in approximately 30 minutes, with 4,000 dervish dead. Young Winston Churchill, aged 23, participated as a war correspondent and cavalry officer. Omdurman wasn't won on that September morning. It was won over years of industrial preparation. Battle of Tsushima, 1905. The most decisive naval battle in modern history. The Russian Baltic fleet had sailed 18,000 nautical miles over 7 months to relieve Vladivostok during the Russo-Japanese War. Admiral Togo Heihachiro waited in the Tsushima Strait with Japan's combined fleet. Russian ships were heavily fouled from their tropical voyage, crews exhausted, and officers inexperienced. Japan's fleet was combat-tested, faster, and equipped with superior fire control systems and high-explosive shells that Russian armour-piercing rounds couldn't match. Russian losses: 4,380 to 5,000 killed, 6,000 captured including 2 admirals. All 11 battleships lost, 7 sunk, 4 captured. Only 3 vessels reached Vladivostok. Japanese losses: 117 killed, 583 wounded, 3 torpedo boats sunk. Tonnage ratio: 749 to 1, the most lopsided naval defeat in modern history. The Treaty of Portsmouth ended the war with Japan recognised as a great power, the first non-Western imperial power. Battle of France, 1940. The fastest collapse of a major military power in modern history. After 8 months of phony war, Germany implemented the Manstein Plan. Rather than repeat World War I's Schlieffen Plan through Belgium, German armour concentrated through the impassable Ardennes forest, cutting off Allied forces. France had more tanks, 3,254 to 4,071, versus Germany's 2,439. France had better tanks, the Char B1 Biz with 60mm armour, and dual guns versus the Panzer IV's 30mm armour. But France had obsolete doctrine. In 46 days, Germany captured nearly 2 million French soldiers as prisoners, the fastest collapse of a major power in modern history. German casualties: approximately 156,000 total. French casualties: approximately 360,000 killed or wounded, plus 1.9 million prisoners. France, which had bled for 4 years in World War I, fell in 6 weeks. At the Battle of Stonne, a single Char B1 bis named Ure destroyed 13 German tanks in minutes, taking 140 hits without penetration. French tanks were individually superior. German doctrine was collectively superior. Superior equipment became irrelevant when wielded with inferior doctrine. Battle of 73 Easting, 1991, the most lopsided tank battle in history. Infinity kill ratio. During Operation Desert Storms, 9 M1A1 tanks crested a ridge in a sandstorm and surprised an Iraqi tank company of the Tawakalna division in prepared defensive positions. The M1A1 Abrams had thermal sights that could see 3 kilometers in total darkness. The Iraqi T-72s had active infrared only, severely limited in the sandstorm. The Americans could see through the sandstorm. In 23 minutes, Eagle Troop destroyed 28 Iraqi tanks, 16 personnel carriers, and 30-plus trucks. US losses? 0. Some Iraqi crews thought they were under air attack and abandoned vehicles for bomb shelters. The entire 2nd Armoured Cavalry Regiment battle. 160 tanks destroyed, 180-plus armoured personnel carriers, and 2,000-plus prisoners. This was the payoff of Cold War investment in the Big Five systems. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.